Have you ever sat in a conference room full of people, hearing someone else's name called for the position you dedicated your entire career to achieving, and realized you'd just been kicked out of your dream with a plastic smile? I've been there, and I thought I'd swallow that humiliation whole. Until I accidentally overheard a $500,000 figure in a shady back alley deal, something that could tear apart our CFO's empire. That's when I knew I wouldn't just survive. I would end his reign. My name is Madison Clark, and I've spent 15 years climbing the corporate ladder at Westbrook Capital. One brick of overtime at a time, 38 years old, divorced, no kids, the perfect corporate soldier. They used to joke. Except I wasn't laughing anymore. Not since that Tuesday morning when my entire world tilted off its axis. The mahogany conference room on the 42nd floor had never felt smaller. 23 executives packed around the table, the morning sun slicing through floor-to-ceiling windows like a spotlight on my humiliation. I sat 3 seats from Raymond Cole, our CFO, watching his manicured fingers drum against his iPad. He knew what was coming. Hell, he'd orchestrated it. Before we dive into quarterly projections, Raymond's voice cut through the small talk like a scalpel. I'm pleased to announce our new Director of Strategic Development. My pulse hammered. 3 rounds of interviews, 2 presentations to the board, 147 nights staying past 10 p.m. to prove I could handle it. The position was mine, everyone knew it. Even the janitor had congratulated me last week. Evan Price will be stepping into the role, effective immediately. The words hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. Evan fucking Price. 6 months at the company, 0 experience in risk analysis, but plenty of experience at the Oakmont Golf Club where Raymond held court every Saturday morning. I felt 22 pairs of eyes slide toward me, then away, like watching a car crash in slow motion. My face stayed neutral. 15 years of corporate warfare had taught me that much, but inside, something shattered. Not just disappointment, this was betrayal served on bone china with a side of public execution. Madison, Raymond's voice dripped with false honey. Your contributions to the risk analysis team have been invaluable. That's why we're keeping you exactly where you excel, leading your current team through these volatile market conditions. Keeping me exactly where you can control me. You mean, where I can't challenge your decisions or question why our audit protocols keep getting mysteriously delayed. The subtext was clear as crystal meth. Evan stood up, his Brooks Brothers suit still creased from the store. 28 years old, MBA from Wharton that Daddy probably paid for, and a smile that belonged on a toothpaste commercial. I look forward to working closely with Madison and her team, he said, managing to make it sound like I'd be fetching his coffee. Wonderful, Raymond clapped once, a judge's gavel ending my case. Madison, perhaps you could bring Evan up to speed on the Morrison account restructuring. Your expertise would be helpful. The Morrison account, my baby. 18 months of negotiations, risk assessments, and strategic planning that would save the company $12 million annually. Now I was supposed to hand it over like a participation trophy. Of course, I heard myself say, my voice steady as a flatline. Happy to help. The meeting continued, but I was already gone, running calculations in my head. Not financial ones, survival ones. How long before they pushed me out completely? How many more Evan Prices would leapfrog over my desk while I played the good soldier? Sandra from HR caught my eye and offered a sympathetic grimace. Even she knew this was wrong, but knowing and doing something about it were different currencies in this building. As the meeting wrapped up, Raymond approached me, his cologne aggressive enough to constitute assault. Madison, you understand this is what's best for the company. Don't you? Evan brings fresh perspectives. Fresh perspectives. Code for he's a yes man who won't question why certain transactions bypass standard protocols. Who won't notice when numbers don't quite add up. Who'll smile and nod when audit reports get buried. Absolutely, I replied, meeting his gray eyes. Fresh perspectives are exactly what we need. He patted my shoulder, the gesture somehow both condescending and threatening. I knew you'd be professional about this. That's why you're so valuable in your current position. Valuable. Current position. The words tasted like ash. As everyone filtered out, I remained seated, staring at the ghostly reflection of myself in the polished table. 15 years, 5 promotions, 3 company awards, and here I was, professionally castrated in front of the entire leadership team. But Raymond Cole had made one miscalculation in his little chess game. He thought I'd learned to be a good corporate citizen. What I'd actually learned was how to look like one while keeping score. And the score was about to change. The signs started small, like hairline cracks in a dam before it bursts. 2 days after my public execution, Evan Price waltzed into my office at 8:30 a.m. sharp, armed with a Starbucks latte and that insufferable smile. "Madison, just the person I wanted to see." He dropped into my guest chair without invitation, manspreading like he owned the place. "Raymond wants me to take point on the capital restructuring for Q3. Thought you could walk me through your preliminary assessments." My preliminary assessments: 6 weeks of modeling, stress testing, and scenario planning that could make or break our leveraged positions. I pulled up the files, watching his eyes glaze over at the first spreadsheet. "This is comprehensive," he managed, which was Evan's speak for, "I have no fucking clue what I'm looking at." "It needs to be. We're talking about $800 million in redistributed assets. One miscalculation and—" Right. He waved his hand dismissively. "Raymond says we need to fast-track this. Skip some of the redundant checking processes. More agile approach. You know." Skip the checking processes. My stomach tightened. In risk analysis, agile was code for reckless, and Raymond knew it. "The board requires 3-tier verification for anything over $500 million, I said carefully. "It's not redundant. It's regulatory." Evan's smile faltered slightly. "Well, Raymond specifically said the usual protocols are flexible, given the time constraints." I made a note in my phone Tuesday, 8:45 a.m. Evan confirms Raymond bypassing verification protocols. "I'll need that in writing," I said, "for the audit trail." "Oh, there's no need for—" He caught my expression. "I mean, I'll check with Raymond." Of course he would, and Raymond would find some slippery way to avoid documentation, like he always did. But now I was watching, really watching. Over the next 2 weeks, the pattern became clear as a sniper's sight. Emails from Raymond always carefully worded, never quite crossing legal lines but dancing along them like a drunk on a tightrope. Meeting invites that mysteriously excluded compliance officers, financial models being updated without version control. My favorite discovery came on a Thursday afternoon. I'd stayed late to finish a report when I noticed something odd in our shared drive. A folder labeled Project Greenfield, innocuous enough, except we didn't have any project by that name. Inside were correspondence threads between Raymond and external parties I didn't recognize, shell companies, from the look of their domains. I took screenshots, everything, every email, every document, every minor revision to our risk thresholds. My personal laptop at home became a digital fortress of evidence, organized chronologically in a folder I labeled Insurance Policy. The real revelation came during a budget meeting. Evan was presenting his restructuring plan, my work with his name slapped on it like a designer label on a knockoff purse. But he'd made changes, specific changes that created gaps in our oversight, blind spots exactly where Raymond would need them if he wanted to move money without triggering alerts. "Interesting modification to the verification timeline," I commented, keeping my voice neutral as Switzerland. "Pushing the 3rd-tier review to post-execution rather than pre-execution." Raymond's eyes snapped to mine. "Efficiency optimization. Madison, we discussed this." We absolutely had not discussed this, but I smiled and nodded. Making another note. Thursday, 2:15 p.m. Raymond claims prior discussion of verification delays. False. After the meeting, Sandra from HR pulled me aside. "You okay? You've been quiet lately." "Just observing," I said, "learning the new dynamics." She lowered her voice. "For what it's worth, everyone knows that promotion should have been yours. Raymond's been making a lot of unilateral decisions lately. People are noticing." People were noticing. Good, because I was building something that would make them do more than notice. That evening, I stayed until 11 p.m., officially working on risk assessments, unofficially. I was mapping the money trail, every project Evan had been assigned, every efficiency Raymond had implemented, every audit that had been postponed. The picture emerging wasn't just suspicious, it was a masterclass in corporate fraud hiding in plain sight. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop digging or start updating your resume. Cute. They were worried enough to threaten me. That meant I was close to something worth a lot more than my career. I deleted the text and kept digging. Raymond Cole thought he'd neutered me by denying that promotion. What he'd actually done was remove my last reason to play nice. The game wasn't over. It had just begun. And I had home field advantage. I knew where all the bodies were buried because I'd been the one taking notes at every funeral. Project Anchor became my obsession. Every evening after work, I'd drive home to my apartment in Brooklyn, pour a glass of wine, and build my case like a prosecutor preparing for the trial of the century. My dining table disappeared under color-coded folders, printed emails, and flowcharts mapping the money trail. The recording from Friday night got its own special treatment. I transcribed every word, noting timestamps and creating a parallel document linking each statement to supporting evidence. Raymond mentioned, like last time. Here were 4 previous deals that had mysteriously fallen through, each followed by deposits to his Cayman Islands account within 72 hours. I developed a system: blue folders for financial documents, red for emails, green for contracts, yellow for the manipulation timeline. By Sunday night, I had 43 folders arranged chronologically, telling the story of 18 months of systematic fraud. Monday morning, I played the perfect employee, smiled at Evan when he bungled another presentation, nodded thoughtfully when Raymond announced the concerns about the Steinberg deal, even offered to compile a risk report to support his position. "That's the team spirit I like to see," Raymond said, his smile sharp as a paper cut. "Have it on my desk by Wednesday." Wednesday, the day after his $500,000 would hit his account. The timing wasn't coincidental. That afternoon, I orchestrated a casual coffee run with Evan. The kid was drowning, and desperate people talk. "How's the transition going?" I asked, stirring sugar into my latte. "Honestly?" He glanced around nervously. "Raymond's management style is intense. He's got me signing documents I barely understand. Says it's good training, but you're worried about liability," I finished. His eyes widened. "How did you—" "Evan, can I give you some advice? Document everything, every signature, every request, every training exercise. Save copies offline. You never know when you might need them." "Is there something I should know?" I sipped my coffee. "Just that in 15 years here, I've seen a lot of rising stars become falling scapegoats. Raymond's good at finding people to hold the bag." The fear in his eyes told me the seed was planted. By that evening, I had a LinkedIn notification Evan had viewed my profile 3 times. He was getting nervous. Good. Tuesday arrived like Christmas morning. I wore my best suit armor for the battle ahead. At 11:15 a.m., I watched Raymond take a personal call, his face glowing with satisfaction. The money had landed. That's when I made my move, sending an anonymous email to Jennifer Walsh, our chief legal officer, from a burner account I'd created weeks ago. Subject line: urgent evidence of financial misconduct. Attached were 3 documents, just enough to demand investigation, not enough to reveal my hand. By 2 p.m., the 42nd floor was buzzing. Legal had called in external auditors. Raymond's assistant mentioned he'd been summoned to an emergency meeting with the CEO. I kept working, the picture of professional calm, while internally documenting everything. When Evan stopped by my office at 4:30 p.m., sweating through his Brooks Brothers, I was ready. "Madison, did you hear about the audit?" "Something about irregularities in the Steinberg assessment," I said mildly. "Why should I be concerned?" "I signed off on those risk modifications," he stammered. "Raymond said they were standard, but if there's an investigation—" "You kept copies of everything, right, like I suggested?" His face went white. "Some things, not everything." I opened my drawer and pulled out a USB drive I'd prepared for this moment. "These are the original assessments before Raymond's modifications. Compare them to what you signed. Document the differences. Tonight." "Why are you helping me?" "Because you're 28 and stupid, not evil. Raymond's the architect here. You're just the hammer he used." Evan took the drive with shaking hands. "What do you know?" "I know that by tomorrow morning, you better have your story straight. And that story better be the truth, with documentation to back it up." He left, and I returned to my spreadsheets. My phone had 17 missed calls from unknown numbers. Raymond was panicking, trying to figure out who'd leaked to legal. At 8:45 p.m., I sent another anonymous package, this time to the SEC's whistleblower portal. More documents, including the Pinnacle Development Contract template. Let them connect the dots to that $500,000 deposit. My real phone rang. Raymond. Madison, I need you in the office early tomorrow. We're having an all-hands meeting about these baseless allegations. Of course, I replied smoothly. What time? 7 a.m. sharp. Bring all your documentation on the Steinberg deal. Everything. Everything? I smiled at my reflection in the dark window. Absolutely. I'll bring everything. He had no idea how much everything I had. Project Anchor was complete 47 folders, 300 pages of evidence, 16 hours of audio, and one corrupted CFO about to learn what happened when you underestimated Madison Clark. Tomorrow's meeting would be Raymond's last stand. He just didn't know it yet. Wednesday morning arrived wrapped in storm clouds. Pathetic fallacy at its finest. I'd been at my desk since 5:30 a.m., watching the Empire prepare for war. Legal had commandeered the 38th floor. External auditors occupied Conference Room B like an occupying army, and Raymond was spinning like a politician caught with his pants down. His first move was predictable offense as defense. The 7 a.m. meeting became his stage to paint me as the incompetent villain in his manufactured crisis. As you all know, he began, his voice carrying that false gravity executives use when they're about to destroy someone. Serious concerns have been raised about our risk assessment protocols, specifically, the Steinberg deal analysis. 20 faces turned toward me. I kept my expression neutral, fingers resting on the folder in front of me. Madison's team flagged issues that, upon review, appear to have been significantly overstated. These errors have potentially cost us a $200 million opportunity. Errors, overstated, each word carefully chosen to build the gallows he planned to hang me from. I've asked Madison to present her original findings so we can understand where the process broke down. I stood slowly, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. I'd be happy to present my analysis, but first, I need clarification. Which version would you like me to present, the original I submitted 3 weeks ago, or the modified version that was uploaded to the system last Thursday? Raymond's jaw tightened. I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I opened my folder and pulled out 2 printed reports. These are both stamped with digital signatures. Mine from March 3rd, the modified version from March 20th. The modifications weren't made by my team. Jennifer Walsh from Legal leaned forward. Who made the modifications? According to the metadata, I slid a third document across the table. The changes originated from CFO administrative access, specifically between 9:15 and 9:47 p.m. last Thursday. The room went silent. Raymond's face flushed red, then drained to corpse white. This is obviously a misunderstanding, he stammered. Evan was handling the updates under my supervision. Actually, Evan's voice cracked from the doorway. He looked like he'd aged 5 years overnight. I need to speak with legal, immediately. Jennifer stood. This meeting is postponed. Raymond, please remain available. Madison, I'll need all your documentation. Of course, I handed her a prepared binder. This contains everything, including correspondence suggesting the Steinberg deal was deliberately sabotaged for external benefit. Raymond stood so fast his chair rolled backward. You vindictive little... Raymond, Jennifer's voice could have frozen hell. Not another word. The mass exodus that followed felt like a funeral procession, but I wasn't done. The kill shot was still coming. At noon, I received a call from CEO David Morrison himself. Madison, can you join us in the boardroom? Bring everything related to Project Greenfield. Project Greenfield. They'd found the shadow folders. The boardroom was standing room only. David Morrison, Jennifer Walsh, 2 external auditors, and 3 board members sat like a tribunal. Raymond was notably absent. Ms. Clark, David began, we've discovered significant irregularities in several accounts. Your name appears nowhere on any of these transactions, yet you seem to have comprehensive documentation. Care to explain? I placed a USB drive on the table. 6 months ago, I noticed unusual patterns in our deal flow. Promising opportunities would suddenly develop fatal flaws. Each failure was followed by our competitors acquiring the same assets at significant discounts. You're suggesting corporate espionage. I'm suggesting that someone was being compensated to ensure certain deals failed. The Steinberg deal was supposed to be the latest casualty. One of the auditors